A fourth thing that governments care about is the current account of the balance of payments. Now, balance of payments is extremely complicated, and we won't come to it in real detail until year 13. It has a number of subcomponents, one of which is the current account, and the current account is arguably the most important one. What the current account measures is the value of exports, and that's what we sell to other countries, in billions of pounds, compared with the value of imports, the amount of money that we spend on on goods and services from other countries. If exports are greater than imports, then we say that we have a current account surplus. If, on the other hand, imports are greater than exports, then we have a current account deficit. And if they're the same, we have current account balance. So this is a complex area that it's really quite simple, but everybody gets confused by it. I mean, it's nothing to do with the government. Whether I buy an iPhone or not has nothing to do with the government. If I do buy an iPhone, some of the money stays in the UK, but most of it is going to the US and China. That leads to an increase in imports. And generally, on average, governments tend to prefer there to be a current account surplus. And then the reason for that is reasonably straightforward. What it means is that UK firms are being successful on world markets. So we're selling lots of minis, we're selling lots of apps and films to citizens in other countries. And as a result of which, UK businesses are making lots of sales, they're making profits, they can, it'll create more growth in the economy, more wages for workers and so on and so forth. So generally, obviously there are risks associated with that. China's kind of less keen these days because of the demand is starting to create inflation. But what we can see is that by and large, a trade surplus or a current account surplus is likely to be beneficial. So it's not quite the same as the trade balance. There are slight differences, but you can use those terms interchangeably for now. The balance of trade, current account, they're very, very similar. So basically what that's looking at is, the value of what we're selling relative, to the amount of money that we're spending on imports. By and large, it's usually considered to be better, if you sell more than you buy. So which is fine. So what sort of things affect that? So we look at if we look at the factors that are likely to be affecting whether or not we have a trade surplus or a trade deficit. There are a number of things. One is productivity. So productivity is the efficiency of our factors of production. So this is measured often by output per worker. If you're efficient, then your costs will be low. If your costs are low, you'll be competitive on world markets, and you'll be able to sell. You'll be able to sell lots of exports. So linked to that, obviously, is things like your costs. So if you have a very high minimum wage, then that might make you uncompetitive. And we talked about that when we talked about inflation, and said that could, that high levels of inflation can damage your international competitiveness. A second important factor is likely to be your exchange rate. So if £1 equals $2 or £1 equals $1, the impact of that is gonna affect whether or not Americans can afford to buy British goods and whether we can afford to buy American goods. Here, where £1 equals $2, we say the pound is strong or high. It makes it very cheap for me to go to Disneyland, but it makes it very expensive for an American student to come to Doverbrooks. So when the pound is strong or high, that'll tend to lead to a worse current account, generally speaking. How fast the economy is growing. Now this is one where students always get it the wrong way around. GDP growth, what that means basically is that there are very high levels of income inside the economy, as a result of which there'll be lots of consumption. We'll spend lots of money, as a result of which imports will tend to go up. So actually, when your economy is growing rapidly, that tends to lead to a worse trade deficit. Other things, a worse trade position, other things being equal, because the growth creates incomes, and the incomes we use to buy iPhones and cars from abroad. So be careful on that one. On the other, so So whereas the argument that students tend to make is GDP means we have lots of things to sell, so we sell them. Yeah, but I'm afraid the world isn't as simple as that. Yeah, just because you make stuff doesn't mean that anybody else wants to buy them. So usually growth is associated with a worse trade balance. And fourthly, kind of protectionist policies. Yeah, so Donald Trump was always chuntering on about currency manipulators. Yeah, so people who would kind of change their exchange rate artificially. But also it's used like taxes on on foreign goods and services. There's tariffs. Governments will give subsidies for local firms to help them to compete, and so on and so forth. And those are the sorts of things that can have an impact on the current account. But loosely, we're saying current account surplus is broadly considered to be beneficial because it means that you're generating lots of demand and income from abroad.